So I just started recording, and now what I want you to do for the recording right now is to just like summarize how qualia originates, and like how dualism like summarizes, like how dualism just happens to explain it,
Oh,
right? Like I just want you to summarize that before I go into like the other objections.
well, I was trying to I don't know, recap on your point, and I was trying to attack that because you were already on the subtopic of how that originated.
Yeah, but I don't remember what you said, to be honest. And I wanted to like formulate an objection because like I think that your like real description of qualia, how it originates, right, through like neurology and shit, it doesn't really require dualism. And in that sense, like in physicalism, we're just going to be positing less entities and be able to explain it, right?
Well, in the case of, I mean, I'm not like, okay, well, in dualism, I think they just like hold to qualia as like these innate properties of like the soul and mind, and like how it originates as well.
Qualia.
Like, you know,
Hold on. I think saying qualia is a property of the soul is just a category error, because like qualia is a property of experience, right? And those experiences are called phenomenally conscious experience, right?
conscious, which, I mean, what do you think the soul is?
I said phenomenally conscious experience.
And why is that a category here?
Yeah, because the soul. What do you take a soul to be? Hold on.
I asked you that.
Yeah, wait, hold on. A soul should be like a subsisting entity, right? That's not grounded in space and time. That is to say, it's a spatio-temporal. And where I was getting at is that well, so basically, qualia is a property of experience, like, and it's not a property of subsisting entities. You just can't extrapolate it onto those sort of entities, right? Because they're going to be fundamentally different things, and you're just misapplying the predicate.
Okay. Would you take the soul to be like or not the soul? Would you take qualia to be like this immaterial essence of a person?
No, I just take qualia to be the qualitative properties of consciousness and experience.
Okay. Well, you don't think the soul is like the core center of like consciousness, because that's like verbatim what the definition says.
I think the soul is a subsisting entity, and it's like the, yeah, you could say it's the consciousness, but like what I was saying is that qualia is a qualitative property of experience, okay? And I basically just said consciousness. When I was talking about
Okay, sure.
no, but when I was like talking about consciousness, I was talking about like the concept as a whole, to be honest, and like, yeah, just like limited to what do you call it, experience, I guess. Just limit qualia to like experience, I guess.
Okay. Well, in the case of like, okay, sure, I can grant that. Although the definition says otherwise, because it kind of implies them in the same category, but sure, I can grant that. I said it's either or, so we can just take it to be an innate property of like the immaterial mind or whatever. Sure, that's fine.
No, I was just like it to be like property of experience in the mind itself. Like the mind is like, what do you think the mind to be actually?
Mind to be composed of and soul and neural properties and networks, etc.
Okay. Yeah, then I guess qualia is like a. I mean, I guess it's found within the mind, although I don't think like it's a direct property of the mind. It's like a property of consciousness, which is found in the mind. Like it's a subset of the mind, right? And now I want you to like.
So it is in the mind.
Yeah. So like what we got at
Yeah.
is the definition of qualia and the definition of the soul. Now, could you tell me how like qualia is going to be originated, given that I don't take qualia to apply to the soul, to be honest, right?
Okay, sure. If you don't take it to be applied to the soul, it's fine. Like in the case of, wait, what do you want me to say? You want me to say like, okay, how does dualism explain? Okay, well, I don't know if I'm obligated to like do that, but sure, I'll kind of explain it for you.
If you think that, if you don't want to do it, defend like dualism, and think that dualism is like not explaining it well, and you're just like unsure about the explanatory power of dualism. You can just tell me how any vague you can just take a vague immaterialistic stance and say that that vague immaterialistic stance is going to be explaining that core layer and all this stuff. This relevant data is going to be explaining that. You don't have to like particularly commit to like a single video. Like you can just like neutralize monism, idealism, or whatever you want.
Sure. But like, I'm not entirely agreeing with the whole premise. That's what I mean. Like, so I can just like conjoin a few factors from it, and like I can make up some like stuff that maybe you can like grant. So, can I proceed?
Okay, sure.
Okay. So in the case of like qualia, like we already defined it like prior, the day after, day before, as like qualia, like this the intersubjective experience of a conscious like rating, and
subjective slash.
In my, yeah, I agree. And in my view, I'd say qualia to like not be only like reduced to like some neural factor or neural activity, but some like irreducible property of like certain physical systems. So in the case of like what they are, they're just invoked to explain how the non-physical mind registers sensory inputs and causes bodily reactions.
Okay, so you just said that let's say we have an immaterial mind, right? And you just said that physical systems are not going to be entirely making up, going to be telling us how that qualia is originated, right? And right, and that qualia is like a registration of information from the stimulus or something like that. Like I didn't really get how that explains like how it's originated. Like you just said it can't be it can't like be coming from this sort of physical systems, and then you just said that it's like registration of information and something else. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, it's just like it just registers the mind in like some like sensory input, like how the body reacts to certain stuff. So it's like, I wouldn't say it can't be derived. I just would take it that it can't be like explained per se. So you can derive it from like some like first order stem, like I don't know, how the pain receptors go about your brain, but the high order like can't really be explained. I think that gap like gives us motivation to say, oh well, it's immaterial, and hence the mind constitutes for that matter.
Okay, so basically that qualia is going to be in this sense like just the registration of information in the immaterial mind, right? And now what I wanted to like see is that when you're like going into like some sort of neurophenomenology, and like when you talk about this qualia, just generally, if it's like just the registering of information, right, then I think that physical systems can be sufficient for that, explaining that. Like let's say you have this sort of methodology like that is adjacent to that of phenomenology, right? I think that you can possibly like make an explanation, and what I would do is like I would just reject like dualism or whatever immaterialistic view you took, and say that that view does not actually explain the relevant data that well. Okay, the reason I take that is because you said that it's the registering of the information in the immaterial mind, right? That's just going to tell you again what qualia is, not how it comes, right? It's just going to tell you, oh yeah, you have some stimulus that gives you information that is not now in your mind, and your mind registers it in such a way that it forms qualia. But that gap is what we're trying to investigate, right? We're trying to investigate how these information is like transformed into these sort of sensations, right? And like in that sense, then this immaterialistic view just fails to like explain qualia, like how it initiates and originates, right? Get what I mean? And like, do you like just want me to like, do you want to like engage in another argument? Because I found like an interesting argument for like physicalism too. But if you want to,
I kind of do, but at the same time I kind of want to like also respond to what you said yesterday. Yeah. Like I don't think that falls. I think that itself is a category here.
Do you want to like,
if you want to talk about that?
Do you want to like refute anything I just said right now, like pertaining to the phenomenology shit and how
Um,
Buddhism fails, and or do you want me to like?
I do believe you like misspoke on like the sensation stuff. I think the sensation is like a product of like what you feel. It's not a product of like why you feel that and how you feel that, etc. It's not that.
Huh? I don't know what that means. Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, do you wanna like drop this discussion and talk about something else, or do you wanna just say that?
You can we can drop at some point, I guess.
Okay. So like the other argument is like, okay, so the premise one is going to be that if some theory T is successful with respect to some domain D, then you will expect a convergence towards that theory. And premise two is just that you see a convergence towards physicalism, and the conclusion is going to be that it is expected that physicalism is going to be successful with respect to the phenomenal physical fact domain, right?
I would just ask you to like how do we like go about this expectancy? Like how do I expect it?
How do you expect what?
How do I expect the phenomenal convergence?
Oh yeah, like are you asking me to like justify how you
Yeah, just a bit.
justify like which premise? Premise one or premise two?
P1.
P1. Basically, like, let's say you have some agents, and oh, what the fuck, bro? These dudes annoying me. Okay, let me get back to it. Right. So where was I again? So like by convergence, I mean like a sort of consensus and agreement between people about the truth of some topic. And when you have truth, okay, I can take like a pragmatist approach of truth and say that truth is essentially found at the end of inquiry, and it's gonna survive inquiry, and that truth will subsist, alright? It's gonna persist through inquiry, and what is not true is not gonna persist through inquiry. And now that from all the people who inquire, you would expect a large amount of people to reach the conclusion that some theory is successful, right? When some theory is successful, you expect a lot of people to like converge onto that belief, because when you're inquiring, the successful theory will just come out on top, right? I think that's like pretty intuitive from my like theory of truth.
Okay, sure. What's P2 then, if you don't mind restating?
P2 is just that we see a convergence towards physicalism in literature.
Okay, and what's the convergence?
Yeah, we see consensus towards physicalism in like literature about, well, philosophy of the mind and just neurophilosophy and etc. Right? I mean, I can like. Do you want me to like pull up statistics? Oh my fucking god!
I mean, on whether or not like the consensus, the the consensus like says so. I think that's a bit.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's a bit of a nuance. I think I kind of want you to like okay, consensus can say something like wrong. You know, like there's been cases of that. Like I don't.
Yeah, but
like,
hold on. I mean, it's just like a probabilistic case. You know, it's just like a probabilistic case that physicalism is going to likely be true.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it can be like some motivating factor, but it's not really like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that's strong motivation. Like, if you could like give me reasoning as to why they believe in that, and like maybe I can attack that reasoning, and then hence the whole consensus thing is like gonna be like unviable or like not feasible to like come about.
Yeah, but like that's not gonna be like much relevant. Like given the contents of the argument, I think I'd be justified in believing that it's true, that physicalism is true.
Yeah, pretense to like the consensus stuff. Yeah, sure, but like I'm just gonna question the consensus in that matter. You know, I think that's fine to do.
Yeah, you could like say that, or maybe the people are wrong, but like that's only a maybe. What we would expect is a convergence towards a successful theory given the pragmatic theory of truth, and what we see is a convergence, right? Whether that consensus is right or wrong, whether it's wrong, if it's like really wrong, okay, let's say that's wrong. That's like only a probability, right? And out of the sample space, I think that physicalism is going to have more subsets in which it's true, right? That's the entire argument. Like that's not defeating the argument, it's just rerouting towards what we think are the reasons of physicalism, right?
In the case of like you like imposing some like pragmatic theory of truth, I don't know if that works necessarily, because I do think it fails to account like some things. Like if you want to test whether a belief X is like useful or not, like we first need to know it's like the fucking core truth beyond that belief, like the objective truth. I don't want to say objective, but just the truth in general about it, about the consequence, like how we act upon it, and just relies on that very like ambiguity where it's like, okay, in the case of like consensus, it's like okay, this thing's motivating to believe in because consensus is like otherwise or whatever, like, and then I would just like enact the small sample spaces as a way of saying, okay, well, given the small sample space, I'll just ask, okay, why would they not believe it? Or like, because maybe there's some like better motivation on that side than the other, and who knows.
Yeah, so like what I was trying to like get at is that when you have like this sort of pragmatist sort of truth talk, what truth is going to be like, we don't talk about like the usefulness of a belief in just the theory of truth itself, right? Just talk about other conditions or like just tenets of truth itself, right? So I just described truth, okay? That's what we are doing. We're just describing what truth is and what are the key tenets of proof, and not proof, just truth, and etc., right? And now, okay, but the thing is not that we see that everything that has a consensus is true, right? The thing is that what is successful will likely have consensus. That's the point we made, because what is successful is true, right? You take that to be the reading, right? And given that, okay, you will like see that the end of inquiry, you will find that successful theory, and then people will realize it's true, and then they flock towards it, right? In that sense, the consensus doesn't make the theory true. It's rather that the theory being true in itself brings the consensus, or at least if there is a consensus, then we would expect the theory to be like successful, right? You get that?
I'm sure. So are you just like are you just saying like, okay, wait, are you conflating truth with usefulness?
No. What? I didn't say that.
Well, I find. Wait, did you not describe that, or?
No, I said that in a pragmatist theory of truth, we're not going to talk about whether a belief is usefulness or just the cash value of a belief. We're just going to be talking about what truth is and the tenets of truth, right?
Well, in the tenets of truth, I believe the consensus mark doesn't uphold, because, like with the case I offered like earlier, a small sample space like can be right as opposed to like the majority, right? That's how that's how I visualize like tails and beliefs. Like a tail in some like graph can be like, I don't know, the outer like 10% of like majority, and the 90% like maybe like some, I don't know. That's like the majority like sample space I'm taking scan here, but I could just, my whole like example just states that like, okay, well, the 90 can be wrong, and like if you were to appeal this like pragmatic sort of like way of thinking, I don't think it's like going to be true, and that like that's how we determine truth. It fails to account for like propositions that are definitively true or false, but whether those propositions have like some practical consequences or not is like, it's a bit iffy on my end, because I don't know if like that's relevant to determining like how this thing is true or not. I think pragmatic is kind of like limited in that sense, and in the domain of discourse of philosophy of the mind, I don't know if that's going to work out in your case. But
yeah, so what I was trying to get at is that in this context, like practical consequence, it basically does not have anything to do. We're just talking about the progressive stages of inquiry and how truth subsists through them, and that's like just a property of truth, right? You understand that? And like, I don't remember what your like objection was, but I'm sure it's about how that conceptual, not conceptual, like practical consequence doesn't like map onto giving a criterion for what is true or not. And okay, hold on, this is another problem.
If that's true, then okay.
Oh yeah. So first of all, I don't take practical consequence to be a criterion for truth. Actually, pragmatic theory of truth doesn't even like attempt to give a criterion. Like that's upon you to give a criterion. Okay, we can develop a criterion together actually. And what it does, it just describes how truth is going to be functioning in the stages of discourse, right? And inquiry, I guess. And about the convergence part, I mean, yeah, I guess a consensus could be wrong, and let's say people flock towards some sort of false belief, right? But it's gonna eventually not subsist through the progressive stages of inquiry, and truth will ultimately come, and then people will flock towards the truth, right? And when you're taking like accounts into, when you're taking science into account, you're going to realize how well many of our theories were wrong, and we flock towards them. But after further inquiry, we refined our theories to match reality, and we happen to accurately match it, right? I'm done.
Are you done? Okay. So in the case of your pragmatic view, you just take beliefs, you just like shoot like beliefs to be like expedient, and what expedient means is like, do you know what it means, or I have to like talk about it? I can talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, sure. Expedient describes like some like method or way of thinking that is practical, efficient, and etc. for like some goal, tending view, and how that fits there as well. Like, you know, true beliefs are expedient in so far as like how your view like counts to it. So just to say that like the majority or consensus like favoring this view is like some motivation in justifying in believing this view. You know what I mean? I think that's like part of what you said. So in the case of like utility, or like you think something is like, you think truth is like useful, and you think usefulness is like true, or you don't think the
I never said
opposite? No?
I never said something about like usefulness. I'm just saying that truth.
Well, the former like is entailed in your point, unless okay. I can just ask you to like talk about the middle, or no, sorry, like the end bit of your like sub point. I think that's fine.
Yeah, like what sub point actually? Like, could you like specify? Like
yeah, you talked about how like the like true beliefs are expedient, and like a belief can be useful.
What I said is I never said like a belief is useful or not. That's like the concern of pragmatist epistemology. What I was saying is that when you have like a belief that subsists through like the progressive stages of discourse, that at the end of inquiry, like at the absolute end, you're going to find truth, right? And then what is going to be true is going to be that thing, right? And we will just naturally flock towards it. That's the thing. And okay, I want you to like also address the negative consensus point. Now the thing is, like, when consensus is wrong, what happens is that it's that the inquiry or progressive discourse hasn't been developed enough and can go into further stages such that they haven't found truth yet, right? And like, could you like just continue your monologue for a second?
Oh yeah, sure. So in the case of like your view, it's like to say like, okay, well, I believe what that view conflates in your case is like you're just conflating truth with the indicators of truth. Like, okay, consensus can be like can account like till it's true. I don't think it wholly accounts to it. That's why I think it's like kind of questionable.
Yeah, hold on. I just think that's a mistake. I'm not saying that truth is being. Hold on. I'm just saying that I'm describing like a property of truth, not truth itself. Like I just said, truth is found at the end of inquiry. Okay, right? That's like a. And would you agree to that, right? You would agree that truth is found at the end of inquiry, right?
Truth is okay, sure, yeah. Truth is like in the. Okay. To put an example, like, you know, in Hegel's dialectics, like we have the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis. You find truth at the synthesis, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, then sure, yeah.
Right. At the end of inquiry, right? And then I just described how truth functions with our sort of talk, right? Let's say we have some sort of discourse about something, and you only see like convergence towards something when it's subsisting through discourse, right? That's what I said, okay. And that just completes my point, so you can continue your like point really quick.
Okay, wait. Okay, if that's the case, then, well, I do believe my like whole thing about like your view, like, actually no, if you do have like some conclusion, okay, just give your conclusion, unless it's just like restating your position.
Give my conclusion as in what? Like,
as in like continue off the because I was only concerning like P1, like P2. Unless you already like gave the conclusion,
Yeah,
I would just like you to like restate it. Yeah.
yeah, I already
Okay.
gave the conclusion, right? That is that physicalism is probably successful with respect to the phenomenal physical fact domain, right?
What was your and what was your stance?
My stance was that type B physicalism. No, it was that I am justified in believing that physicalism.
Okay, okay, yeah, you're just fine believing that. Okay, okay. Would you say? Because I don't know if it holds. I can give you like. So ratty. Okay. You're saying it's probably true. I don't. Okay, do you hold to like something called like a consensus theory of truth, or like is that just a part of like the pragmatic inquiry that you're betting here? Because I don't think you uphold to that, right?
Wait, I don't hold to like the consensus theory of truth. Like I already explained that bit.
Okay, sure.
Do you want me to like reiterate that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that consensus does not in itself generate truth, but that truth is going to have consensus at the end of inquiry, right? People are going to naturally flock towards the truth at the end of inquiry, as opposed to like consensus generating truth.
In the case of like how truth is verified, then in that regard, in like your view, it's just verified as a result of like inquiry, like some warranted assertability. I don't think like when we look at reality, and like we would say like reality often expects like things independently of like our ability to like verify it or experience it per se, and like that's why I think the pragmatic method that you're invoking here is like kind of like flawed in itself, because it doesn't like actually test against like the physical world. I would say like okay, in essence, I don't think it being like, I don't know if it being probable is like is going to lead to like the truth in that regard. Like I don't know if it's going to lead to, because when I said about like you conflating the truth with the indicators of it, like consensus can be an indicator of it. I don't think it's like a viable indicator. You know what I mean? Because there's majority cases or like a middle sample space that says or tells us like how consensus goes, and they often vote for the wrong thing, or the, you know, like in the case of like the president and whatnot, like, you know, they vote for the wrong presidents. In the case of like the like certain like methodologies, they adhere to the wrong things, and like ultimately like the goal there is to like the ultimate goal in reality is to like not adhere to like things that deconstruct like our way of like our like certain intuitions and our like preserved like states of like truth conditions, like how reality works and like what reality is, and like how we define our reality without defining reality.
Okay. So about your like second part pertaining to like some sort of like, was it pertaining to like where consensus is wrong, right? I think I already expressed that. I just don't think that consensus is going to be like most of the times wrong, at least at the end of inquiry. When inquiry is like finally ended, when you reach the synthesis, you're going to reach the truth and it's going to be correct, right? The consensus is going to be wrong at some stage of discourse, not at the end of inquiry. If the methods are correct, right? I think that's a tenet of pragmatism. And then first of all, like inquiry just supposes some sort of triangulation and etc. And what was your first point? Oh yeah, so about your first point, right? What I said is that just because we haven't like reached the end of inquiry at some sort of proposition, that does not mean that it is not true, right? Things are just true independently of us, right? And what I'm describing is like what like is a property of truth is found at the end of inquiry, whether like we have finished the inquiry or not. Truth is just going to be there. We're just gonna find it when we end our inquiry. Do you have any contentions to that?
I do believe I would like to redefine a few things. I do believe that consensus is like useful and practical in like majority cases, or like the middle ground. That's why I said like when I said in like your case, like I don't think consensus is like wrong in like majority cases. I meant like right after this is like the middle of it. Like I don't know, I'm kind of like in between as to like whether or not it's like a small sample space or a majority. But yeah, I clarified it's a middle. But I do believe it's like it can be practical in that regard, or it can be useful in that sense. But in terms of like how progression like takes us, like all consensus there does is like I don't think it guarantees truth. Obviously it doesn't. That's not in line with your position. But all it really does is like showcase some like strong indicator of like probability. and whether it's strong or like weak, I don't know. It depends on like the sample space in question, like how the domain of discourse is like being talked about. So if you can like expand upon how it's a strong indicator in this domain of discourse, I think that would be fine.
Yeah, like I would just say that we're going to have, like when we're talking about inquiry, right? What do you think is a preferred method? I would say that for our normal things, right, we should take the reductivist project, and then for like qualia and stuff, you can just take whatever approach, like whatever methodology. You can like combine multiple methodologies. You can like take a scientific methodology, you can then take a phenomenological methodology, and then you can just try to, well, synthesize with different methods, use different types of data, and just try to like triangulate. You know how we use the term triangulate in social sciences, like the theory triangulation
to connect certain stuff. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to like working with multiple theoretical schemas and stuff. So like I think that in this specific domain, this is like a more like fruitful domain, because we can also apply our phenomenological methodologies, right, that given by Horace and a lot of different phenomenologists. It's going to help us like study that immaterial parts that you consider to be immaterial, and etc. Like we just have like we can just like do this sort of process of triangulation and then have inquiry, and then we can have fruitful results, and then we can continue.
Okay. Now in the case of like the qualia mentioned, like how we triangulate that and origin, etc. Sorry. I would just define it as like, well, I already gave my definition, but I'll just like restate it for clarity purposes. I think it's the intersubjective experience of the mind that hosts like these sensory inputs and outputs and etc. How the body reacts to it and these bodily functions and etc. But I think there's ways of explaining. Sorry, not explaining. I think there's ways of coming about an origin of qualia, like through some like first order justification or like web of like systematic beliefs, like in the case of neurology. I believe you can use that to explain that. To justify the origin. But I don't think like neurology as a whole, or like not even as a whole, I don't think neurology in general like fully encapsulates qualia, you know. I think the why in that, the why is like the high order thing. I think you can already tell and like dictate like what that is and what that entails. The why in that is like not really like fully explained in that domain. That's what I think like we can like derive some like motivating factor as to like believe, okay, well, if it's not within the domain of like talk of like neurology in terms of like how do we explain qualia is and like what qualia is, etc., then I think, you know, like it separates the gap in between domains, and hence why it's its own thing, like irrespective of the physical domain. I think that's just like a basic database, like how we use like how we use like classical logic to say like, okay, well, okay, well, I'll just use the principle of exclusion to like dismiss contradictions existing, or supposing like some reductive beyond that. And I would just say like, okay, well, that isn't to say like because this is what we talked about yesterday, like that isn't to say like contradictions themselves exist within the system, because you know I'm just talking about it in a reductio sense, and that's what I'm kind of doing in terms of like qualia, because I don't think like qualia necessarily exists like or fully can be explained or exists within the system. I do believe it can be explained in terms of how it originates, not like what it is and etc. Like the why and like the how and like its own like sort of a thing, you know.
Okay. So you're just saying that neurology fully can't explain qualia, and that. What else did you say again? Like just summarize what other parts you.
Sure. So in summary of the. Neurology can't fully explain qualia. Only thing it can explain is its like origin and its derivation. I think that's the only thing it can do. Because I did that yesterday, and I don't think that entirely like means that you can explain it fully, but you know, etc. Then I used the classical logic example as a way of sort of like exemplifying my point and like saying, okay, well, this doesn't mean like contradictions exist within the system. It's a category. But yeah, it's basically.
But anyways. So, what we're going to be talking about is now, like, do you think that these different methods can be eventually refined, and you could just try to like use this sort of theoretical triangulation with different models like phenomenology, and etc. the scientific model, and just try to refine them till you have progressive inquiry, and then at the end of inquiry, you're just going to see the convergence, right? And yeah, I want to like conclude, I guess, and that right now I think that we are at a good stage of triangulation, I guess, because we have sort of like a synthesis of phenomenological methods, and then we have a synthesis of scientific methods, and etc. And just this sort of triangulation in all type 4 ways, you're just going to like lead to better results, even if you think that there's a genuine ontological gap that you can't explain. I guess we can still like attempt to explain it. Or actually, I would just deny the ontological gap and say it's epistemic gaps in some type of physicalist. But yeah, Handel, do you wanna conclude? I can stop the recording.
I can like talk about one point. It will be very short. I'm not gonna like try to use it as a way of saying, "Oh, I won" or whatever. It's corny.
Sure.
But for the epistemic gap, it's like, I do believe like, well, there's an epistemic gap, but there's also like an ontological gap insofar as it's not within the domain of like, physical facts, and if it's not within that, then it's not like if it can't be explained fully in the laws of physics, then I think like, it's gonna give us some like motivation to believe, okay, well, it's its own kind of thing, it's its own kind of domain, and hence how the immaterial domain like comes about. If you disagree with that,
the thing is like,
because of your view, I know.
The thing is like, I think that maybe like physics. I think that it probably could like explain qualia, and like I guess there's like different models in physics too, and like I just don't feel like getting into that, to be honest.
All right, it's fine. If you want, we can stop here.
Yeah,
that was a good convo.